Hey traders, my morning video. So what I'm seeing this morning in the ES or the futures and everything is that we are just basically having an oversold bounce, and no more, no less than that in these markets. We had that end of day sell off, and we just got a responsive bounce into the open here from that massive end of day liquidation. And like I said in the last video, the liquidation I think was caused by large orders sitting on the books to be closed out at the end of the day. They didn't have time to liquidate them during the course of the session. So those orders had to be liquidated, forced liquidation into the close. That's a bearish scenario going into today's session. And we're not really catching much of a pop, in my opinion. You know, you see these greens, all this green here, you think, oh my goodness, it's really good. No, I'm not hanging too much on the tree about this, okay? We have a double distribution weekly profile, and basically price above this volume point of control, monthly volume point of control, has just been completely and totally shut down in this market to up till today. We had Brian mention I think it was the 25.87.78. This is a critical level that he was looking to hold yesterday, and we just completely blew right through it and traded below it most of the session yesterday. So we are going to come back to that level today, and if we can get up above that and hold, then I think the markets are looking pretty good. But right now, no, looking pretty ugly. And excuse me for having all these fib fans on here, but they are really important to have. That's why I left them on here. This is the primary. I got two of them on here. This is the primary weekly downtrend. Okay, and we just crossed back inside the downtrend from an oversold situation. And this is the accelerated downtrend that started back on Tuesday, the Tuesday close. We had the accelerated downtrends from that point, and I have that drawn on here, and we still haven't even crossed over the 50% line for a bullish signal to the upside in these markets. So we need to get above this mid 50% sign. I figure what we're going to do, we're going to come in and we are going to back test that on the open. And that's going to tell us whether or not buyers are willing to support prices at this point. And there's nothing else that's going to save us otherwise. Okay. Okay. 1 second here. Let me find another chart. Okay, the Qs are looking much better, much more healthy for the Qs here. We are the primary fib fans. We are holding out above the mid. We're right above that 50% mid fan. Oh well, let me go out. I'll double check here. I don't want to. I got a lot of fib fans on here. I'm sorry for all the confusion. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Got that and that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let me go back here now, and we can see these a little bit better. Yep. Yep. That's this here represents, this is the 50% fib fan for the secondary on the downtrend. I really thought I was coming in yesterday thinking that was going to be a strong responsive buy point, which so far this morning we are getting. Now we're getting back above the top fib fan, and this is what I want to really focus on, these fib fans here. And I really hate to have all these darn drawings on here, but I want to point these out going forward here. So basically, I can take this one off at this point because we have broken out above. Unlike the ES futures, the accelerated downtrend, we have already broken out above, so I can remove that one. So we are now back testing the midline on the uh, from Tuesday. Tuesday, the midline fib fan. So this is a critical delineation for bullish or bearish. And we do on our 1 hour chart, we have the 100 SMA here. We are back testing at 100 SMA right here on the open on the 15 minute. I'm sorry, 15 minute we are going to be back testing that 100. I think that's what it is. Let me double check that. Okay, that's the 200 SMA for the 15-minute chart here that we are back testing as we come right into the open for today's session. So, we'll still see volumes are higher today than yesterday, in my opinion. So we are seeing some strength in some of these ETFs that we were not seeing yesterday. So that says something to me that we were having a lot low volumes for the last leg down, and now we're seeing some relatively higher volumes for the leg up. That is giving me a little bit a stronger bullish signal going into today's session. So just keep that in mind going forward in today's trading. And then IWM, really, really weak. Let me go out here and give you, I'm on a 1 hour there. Let me go on the daily here and show you just how bad it is. I mean, it's just absolute carnage for the IWM to the downside here. We are not catching too much strength here this morning. Let's see, we were at the 117 area. Yeah, we're still down here in this zone. We really need to clear the 118.30 area, 20 area for for a what I would consider a responsive uh, bullish signal in the IWM, which we're not getting at. That's despite having a big, nice little bounce in the crude oil space. So keep that in mind going into your trading today. And let's see, I do it on a 15-minute. Yeah. So basically, we have crossed over on this accelerated downtrend that started because of the whole OPEC thing. It started Wednesday afternoon, the big sell-off, and we have crossed over the 50% fib fan right here, right now. So something to keep on watch going forward here. Like I said, we need to get above this 118 to 40 area. I guess that's what it is. Before I can start sounding any type of all clear and hold above that area. So it's still in a lot of trouble down here in this alley, and we are so just keep that in mind going forward. If you go on your weekly profile, which I forgot to mention that, see we have a double distribution. Buyers were absolutely shut down. There's a complete gap volume right above us here, right above that green line I mentioned in 119, 118.40. Just a complete absence of any inventory at all going into today's session. So keep that in mind. They do love to rally it up to the gaps. So getting at least to that gap does make sense. I just don't know if we can push any higher above that given the current situation. Okay, things I'm seeing this morning. Bonds. We do have a Fed fan break, technical break. It's holding up here in this price value so far. This is a bullish sign for the markets if this is a technical, a change of technical weakness in the bonds, suggesting that we might get some rotation to the downside on our bonds today because we are right at the very low end of our weekly value for bonds opening Friday. So this is a bullish signal for our markets potentially for today's session. Okay. And then also we have our crude oil. Okay, let me do that one real quick. Okay, what we want to see today in our crude oil space, we wanted to hold prices right here where we're marking right now. This is the highest point to do business for today, for this week's, it's a weekly value area. We are rallying back to the highest point to do business for the week for crude oil. So we want it to at least hold this area for the week, if not try to push out to the upside to finish the week out with. So that's something I'm really watching going forward here for our crude oil. That might help support markets if that can happen. So just something to keep on watch going forward here. We know how completely and utterly destroyed the crude oil space has gotten this week, and just to maintain a bid would be so constructive for this market. Okay, we're here. It's a little after 7 o'clock in the morning. We're over 1 million contracts on SPY already. This is so much better than what we've had the past couple of days. So, that does support Lynn, in my opinion, that there is some speculation coming in here to the upside, given the relatives. We're getting some volumes finally creeping into this market. They would seemed like to me, despite the big sell-offs we've had the past few days, that they just weren't willing to participate volume-wise in the sell-off. And now we're finally getting a potential reversion to the upside. So just keep that in mind going forward. Here are some things. I would have preferred to have the Qs leading the way, but typically SPY gets 60% of the volumes. So keep that in mind. Of all the equities, 60% of the volumes are there. So we're still on a relative basis have heightened volume in the Qs. So that is something to hang your hat on going into today's session. Okay, in my opinion. Okay. Another bullish takeaway for today's session. We are breaking below our 21 EMA on the VIX futures for a potential continuation to the downside. We have the weekly volume that could take you all the way down to the 53.82 area. That would keep us still into this upper distribution area. So if we could start seeing a big flush in the VX futures, that could be really bullish for the markets going in today's session. So that's something to keep in mind. I would have really preferred to see the VIX futures down at the bottom of the bell curve here going into the open of the session, and not seeing that is giving me a little concern that our little pop this morning may not have legs. So watch the VX futures. If we can get down close to the 53.96 going into 9 o'clock or 9:30, that suggests to me that we might have a liquidation short squeeze or a short squeeze going into the open of today's session. So just keep that on your watch going forward in today's session, in my opinion. Some of the top volume leaders this morning, like I said, we're getting a little bit more volume on even on some of these individual names. AMD, starting to see a little bit of interest here. Basically, we were just this entire pattern here was just completely destroyed, going back to December 2nd, and we're trying to back test the pattern, getting back into it on AMD. Highest volume so far this morning and most active charts. We're just doing a back test right now, but it is a broken pattern still, despite the back test we're seeing right now. Apple. Okay, this is one I had mentioned in my last video, and one thing that I did notice right there at the close, they were buying the 225, or they were, I believe they were selling the 225 foots. They were taking credit spreads. So somebody came in right there at the end of the day, and I think they were A-okay with selling credit spreads on the 225 puts on Apple, suggesting they thought the lows were in on Apple, and they were willing to get assigned at 225 on Apple. So a big trader came in right there at the close. I had to look into it a lot better, but it was a big sell on the bid. So that suggests to me somebody took a major credit spread into the close yesterday on Apple, and now we're getting a nice little pop up if what I'm thinking actually happened in yesterday's session. So keep that in mind going forward here. Apple does have a nice little bid going for it this morning. Basically, all that forced selling situation, which I do think algos hit and it triggered a forced selling situation for Apple into yesterday's close. And now we're catching a little responsive bid. So this one here, my eyes are really focused on Apple today, wanting to know if that is a one-day situation for Apple or if we're going to get a continuation sell-off, like there's big sellers sitting there waiting to hit the trigger for continuation selling in Apple. And so it's really important to keep that one really on the top of your charts going forward into today's session. Tesla. Okay. Loading it up here. Potentially a forced selling situation into the close for Tesla. Similar situation, getting a responsive bid right here. This is a support line. This here is the line where that triggered the breakout, the major accelerated breakout. We're getting right back above it again. So that responsive capitulation sell-off yesterday afternoon is being all taken back here on Tesla. Quite a bullish scenario if the markets were to catch a bid. And we do have a double distribution on volume, and we are testing that right now for the weekly. So basically, if we can get up above the 594 area on 594 and 595 area on Tesla, this thing here could run and to try to get back up to this higher distribution today for Tesla going in today's session. So just keep that in on your watch here. You can't really see the volume profile. Let me try to change my zoom here so you can see that better. This is a weekly volume profile. See the double distribution on the volume profile, and it looks like sellers got rejected down here. We have a bid back in here above support, suggesting price is wanting to migrate back into this upper distribution if we continue to get a short squeeze today. So that is one of the scenarios I am seeing in today's session. We're seeing a little bit. We also have some volume coming into Amazon. And anytime you get below 1690, in my opinion, right, because of the really strong earnings last time, that is a buy. And basically, we had a liquidation sell-off in Amazon right below this trend line, which I've got drawn on my charts. And so I had actually was preparing to buy Apple or Amazon into the close. My order did not fill. I had the final ticks. My order didn't fill, but I was shopping for Amazon down here. Like I said, anything below 1690 area is typically a buy signal for Amazon. We are catching a little bit of a responsive bid this morning, so we'll see what happens here. We are still inside of Friday or yesterday's range, so you can't hang too much on it going forward here. We have a double distribution weekly. We're still trapped down here in this lower distribution. Really, of all the charts I've showed you so far, Tesla looks the most promising going forward so far. Carnival Cruises is catching a bid this morning. Boy, major short squeeze, it looks like, hitting that on Carnival. And, you know, that is a major percentage gain considering just how big of a massive disaster this one has been. And it looks like still a very damaged chart, despite the slight little pop we're having here. Very damaged situation for Carnival 1742, yeah. And we're still trapped down here in this low volume distribution. If it had came up to here this morning, I would have been much more thinking it was a constructive build on the pattern for that. And then some of my lower volume things that are hitting my actually we got Microsoft. Microsoft's hitting on my volume scan as well. Similar situation. We had forced selling situation going into the close. We have overlapping weekly volume point of controls. We were trapped in there for most of the day yesterday. We seem to be trying to push out above at this moment. Still, we have 3 volume distributions for Microsoft. And in my opinion, we're probably going to be trapped right here because we have this overlapping weekly value. We're going to be trapped right here in this range today, in my opinion, for Microsoft. So keep that one in mind going forward today. And then we have Facebook. First in a long time, I'm getting a decent signal on Facebook. And similar, oversold bounce, trapped down here in this lower distribution for the week. Still not overly constructive upside potential here for Facebook. So basically everything I'm seeing here is just a short squeeze until it's proven otherwise. The only one that's really showing construction is Tesla, in my opinion, so far this morning. Um, this one here is not too bad. JD.com, it's showing a little bit more constructive strength, in my opinion, as suggesting that it's strapped right here in the middle, similar to Microsoft. Um, so we'll keep a close eye on JD, but it does have better support at higher prices here for JD going forward. But that was a lot. Now we're getting into some lower volume setups for today, and so the conviction behind them is not that great, in my opinion. Similar, Gilead, lower volume conviction going into today's session. Um, yes, up here does seem more supportive of price, so we could possibly get a short squeeze. If the markets were to squeeze, uh, it does look like the 74 area is a magnet going into today's session for Gilead. NVIDIA, lower volume alert, similar short squeeze. Chart does seem to be broken, so you don't want to be chasing it. And the semiconductors are a broken uptrend pattern, so you've got to be extremely careful trying to look for any type of momentum in that sector until we get some repair in some of these charts. Disney broken chart. It is showing some construction, but it's not. We're still trapped in this lower distribution. So basically, it just makes basically a bunch of short squeezes hitting the tape this morning, supporting prices. Boeing, highest point to do business right here at the lows. Buyers and sellers are fighting it out. So something to keep that on watch for Boeing. The volume point of control has migrated to the lows. Typically, what I want to see for a reversion trade higher is the developing weekly VPOC to be near the highs for a short squeeze to finish the week off. Traders have had it wrong. Instead, we have accumulation down here near the lows, suggesting further downside pressure for Boeing going into next week, or going into today and into next week. And Bank of America is really the only bank, and this is my problem child in the banking sector. We are catching a bid in the financials this morning, but looky here, we're just barely getting back into the weekly highest volume to do business, this highest volume distribution area, and we're just barely trying to push up back into that over this oversold a lighter volume node that we put in yesterday for Bank of America. So it is constructive, but for the most part, I'm just seeing a oversold bounce this morning, which could very easily just come right back in our face. So yeah, I'm going to really take it light this morning. I'm really concerned that this is going to be short lived, and not seeing too many chart patterns that really are supporting the pop this morning. And Apple's the one that I'm really going to be focusing in on. It's been paying very well here lately. If you just focus in on any one chart, that would be the one that I would focus in on going into today's session and see if we can get some alerts going off in that. And but basically, I wasn't getting any alerts to speak of for most of the day yesterday that were actionable. And I'm afraid we might be coming into today's session with a similar situation. So just keep that in mind going forward here. A lot of risk. I do like the higher volumes, suggesting there is some interest starting to seep into the markets, maybe trying to support prices at these levels. Okay, thanks a lot, and I will see you in the trading room. And like the video if you like it, and please make some comments below if you're seeing stuff that I'm not seeing, and even if you disagree with what I'm doing and stuff. But I appreciate all your feedback, and maybe we can learn from each other and make some money today.